You're listening to The Harmony of We, a space for remembering what we already are together. I'm Greg Kiper, counselor, author, and fellow traveler in this ongoing field of being human. This podcast isn't about fixing. It's not about getting relationships right. It's about coming into resonance with yourself, with each other, and with the presence that lives in between. This is where the book Relationship, The Harmony of We continues, in breath, in story, and in shared awareness. Welcome back. So glad you're here today. I want to talk about something deeply ingrained in many of us today: the impulse to fix. If you're not a fixer, I'm sure you know one. We all have this tendency, I think. When something hurts, we fix. When something feels off, we fix. When relationships struggle, we fix. Fixing feels responsible, right? It's the right thing to do. It feels productive, accomplishment, that little dopamine hit, right? It gives us something to do. But over time, I've come to see that fixing often carries a hidden message that something is wrong. In relationships, fixing can sound like, if only we communicated better, or if I just worked on myself more, or maybe if they just changed this one thing. And again, sometimes skills help. But many people come to therapy exhausted, worn out. Not because they don't care, but because they've been trying so hard. Trying to fix something they don't fully understand. So where does that impulse come from? Most of us didn't wake up one day and decide to become fixers. We adapted into it. Maybe emotions felt overwhelming in your early life. Maybe conflict felt dangerous. Maybe love felt conditional. Maybe your value came from being useful. So you learned, if I can improve this, if I can smooth this over, if I can solve this quickly, then we'll be okay. I think so much of the time we assess the fixer as controlling. But the fixer is rarely controlling at its core. The fixer is protective. It's a strategy for safety. And healing's different. Healing doesn't move toward control. Healing moves toward truth. Healing doesn't ask, how do we make this better? It asks, what is trying to be felt here? So often, relational pain isn't about behavior at all. It's about unmet presence. Unmet presence sounds subtle, but it's powerful. A person comes to their partner to share something important, meaningful, a disclosure that in its authenticity has the potential to move the engagement to a deeper connection between the two. And in that authenticity, something in that partner becomes visible. And that visibility is vulnerability. And vulnerability requires some sense of safety, presence, staying in the moment with authenticity, the real you, not turning away, not armoring, just allowing what is happening to be happening. This all requires vulnerability. And when that presence is not met with presence, when there is no mutual exchange, it's like the difference between I understand what you're saying, and I feel you. I know what you're going through. It's the difference between advice and attunement, between analysis and empathy. This has reminded me right now of a session I had with a young couple recently. She's a HSP, a highly sensitive person, an empath. And he's a good person, caring, doing anything for you. But his emotional vocabulary is mad, sad, and happy. She's tried every avenue she can to come up and get him to let her in, but to no avail. In this particular session, she said something like, "We have talked about this over and over. I just don't feel like you hear me. You don't listen to me. You don't understand what I'm saying when I say it." And he immediately said, "Oh, I hear you. I understand what you're saying." He turned to me and said emphatically, "Greg, I understand what she's saying. I hear it. I get it." And then he paused and looking right at me said, "But don't ask me to go anywhere else with it. I don't do that. I don't know how." He paused again and then he leaned into me and he said with a furrow in his brow, "Greg, my mom was a cowboy. That's how I grew up." Whenever she would bring up anything going on for her, he would jump in to fix it up, come up with solutions, list them, pick what he thought was the best one, force her buy-in by saying something like, "Makes sense, doesn't it?" And then move on. I remember later in the conversation, she tried again. "I just wish you'd let me in. I want to know that you love me." And I'll never forget. He leaned back in his chair and with a huff said, "Oh, you'll know if I don't love you." So I've sat with couples who tell me, "We've talked about this 100 times." And they have. But what's missing isn't information, it's attunement. Attunement is the mutual exchange of sensitivities and information. The moment healing begins is usually very quiet, and it begins with presence. Someone slows down, someone stays, someone feels something they've been avoiding. There's no fixing, just presence. Over and over, I sit with couple, right? And one partner says, "I just need you to listen instead of trying to fix everything." And the other responds, "I am listening. I'm trying to help." And the first partner says, I don't want help. I want you." The other partner pauses. And you can see the confusion. I saw it in the couple I just spoke about right before he said, um, "Greg, my mom was a cowboy." There was confusion right there. Because in his mind, in their mind, people like that, helping is loving. But underneath that moment is something quieter. He's afraid that if he doesn't fix it, he's failing. Afraid that if he can't solve it, he'll lose her. And she's not asking for solutions. She's asking to not be alone in her feeling. That's the shift from solving the problem to staying in the experience. So going forward this week, I want you to notice where you feel the urge to fix. Notice what happens if you just pause instead. Don't do anything. Pause. Often, underneath the urge to fix is tenderness, grief, fear, longing. That tenderness is uncomfortable for the emotionally guarded, but it's not weakness, it's intelligence. Healing doesn't remove pain immediately, it changes how pain is held. There's a quiet irony here. The more we try to fix connection, the more we treat it like a project. And connection is not a project. It's a living field between us, the we. It responds to presence, not pressure. Healing begins the moment someone says, I'm here. Not to solve you, not to change you, but to stay. That's the moment beyond fixing and toward healing. And words are not required. Healing doesn't require effort. It requires allowing. Next time, we'll explore how we fall asleep to ourselves and how the emotional autopilot quietly takes over. Until then, remember, you don't need to fix anything. Just listen. See you next time.